I'm really indebted to our beloved
David
Mehboob Bhai for hosting this particular event, and all of you for
from
attending
Calgary
it.
University.
I think the question whether the chip can really work in a human, it's not possible what Mehboob Bhai just did. So you can see that the chip has already been planted. So he could remember the names of all the people and also tell everyone that what they do. I would have, humanly it's not really possible. So this is the first trial chip, and you've seen how fantastically it worked. The other thing I would like to say is in support of, again, the floods in Pakistan. Many people say that, how do we know that some of the people that we are giving money, they actually deserve it? How do we know that whatever we get in this world and in this country, we are deserving of it? So we have been bestowed even though we don't deserve. So I think it's really important for the entire humanity, and especially a country like Canada, which is one of the most generous, one of the most beautiful, and one of the most fantastic countries. And we have always risen, we have always supported. I mean, if we could give $90-some million for Ukraine, I think Pakistan is deserving of more of that because of the natural disaster. So we would really like to urge our government also to step up and match dollar for dollar what has been raised here. This is something that's really, really important. I also like to say that I had the privilege of speaking at the Hunar Foundation in Karachi. And the work the Hunar Foundation is doing is absolutely remarkable. I think, not everybody could go to Stanford, Harvard, or university, but everybody has the right to be able to earn their living through rightful and halal means. And I think Hunar Foundation is providing that opportunity as well. So this is really what I'm going to talk to you about. And I think I will make everybody a little bit uncomfortable. But at the same time, I cannot present some of the work that we are doing. So I will stop at where it becomes uncomfortable for everyone. But I think they have turned the lights off, and I know that I am between you and dinner. So I will try to keep the pace a little bit faster, but be happy to stop and answer some questions later on. So to begin with, this thing works. We were presented with this young lady, and she was brought to our hospital where parents said that she's been sick for a few days. She had, maybe cold, and they provided her or gave her some Tylenol for a couple of days. She didn't get better. Then came a time when she got really sick. They brought her into intensive care, and intensive care folks and the emergency folks shifted her, and within 72 hours she passed away. Beautiful, 13 years old young girl. So parent wanted to know what was wrong with her. So we were asked to do the autopsy. When you open the brain, you begin to realize that we could see only a mass of tissue. That's all. Her feelings, her sentiments, her emotions, her ability to think about Santa Claus coming down, her thinking about Tooth Fairy, her emotion and affection related to family and friends, getting upset with a friend for no good reason, thinking about little, gremlins appearing underneath her carpet. All of these emotions and affections, they were impossible for us to really determine. So all we say is the brain is biological, but our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, they are beyond observable. We cannot observe them. We cannot measure them. So one of the major, most important problem in the field of neuroscience is that if you want to understand how all of these functions occur, you need to acquire the ability to be able to record from large networks of brain cells, which has been really a daunting challenge. During my PhD, I recorded from 12 brain cells, and I thought I walked on water, only to realize I was the dumbest person on planet, because 12 brain cells could not tell me how tens of billions of brain cells actually function to elicit a particular behavior. And the other problem is that if your brain is damaged, either due to stroke, trauma, injury, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and depression, mental health related issues, we don't really know any of these processes, and we can't fix them because there is no treatment. We manage these symptoms, but we can't treat them. That's really one of the biggest challenges in the field of neuroscience as well. So when your brain is actually intact, but you lose an arm or leg, your brain is intact, but there is no organ. So how do you really empower these people by using the technologies? And this is what I am actually going to talk to you about. We think about mindfulness. Mindfulness is really noticing details all around you, being present right here and right now, as all of you are. So you are actually solipsist. You are only looking at the parts of the brain that is invoking your sensory perceptions. So thinking before acting and speaking, paying attention to how your body is feeling and responding. So, there are two parts to your brain. One is the conscious part, and the conscious part of your brain scans 42 frames per second, whereas the unconscious part of your brain scans 1.2 million frames per second. So if I ask you, where is your foot? Up until now, you didn't know it. And then you started to wiggle and said, oh, it's still here, it hasn't left. I wish it had taken me out of this room and taken me somewhere else. So that really is to be able to paying attention to how our body is feeling and responding. And when you think about really brain health, we look at the interpretation of senses and control of movement, both mental and emotional processing, and the maintenance of your normal behavior and social cognition. So this is really brain health. This is what we notice and we do. So how do we know the way the brain works? Most of the time we really find out when something goes wrong. We had a patient, John, and he felt that he was pregnant. He's been attending functions like this. He has grown a little pot belly because he's been eating too much. He ended up in hospital because he was having anxiety and panic attack. And he thought that because he's in the hospital, his belly is protruded out, that he's pregnant, right? So we know similarly, his symptoms, his GPS, which normally allows the person to see and understand, the relative location and the time, it went faulty. Imagine that if all of a sudden our GPS goes berserk, it makes us spin and takes us places where we don't want to go.